and welcome. Super happy you're here today. I am working on 10 by 10 inches by 2 inches on the side. These are from Cheap Joe's, which I purchase online. All right, so I did already put down a layer of gesso before I got started. I let that dry, and as you can see, I scratched into that wet gesso so that I can get some texture happening. I'm moving right into getting some marks down and just kind of obliterating the white surface. This is my way of connecting to the wood piece and to just get something going down. Just part of my process, part of my way of, like I mentioned, connecting with the artwork that I'm about to create and get my hands in motion. Now I'm also going right into the black paint. In my last video, I did something a little bit different. If you want to check out that video, I'll put a link here where I came in with some colors first instead of my traditional or typical black that I like to use. And I was just trying to do some different things. I was also using matte medium, things of that nature. So check out that video. All right, putting down black, I like to put down black because I just love the depth that it creates in my paintings. Now, in addition to creating this piece for you today, I'm going to talk about 4 mistakes that you can avoid when creating abstract art. So I came up with a list of 4. I know it's such an odd number, but it's not an odd number, it's an even number. People usually come up with a list of 3 or 5 or 10, but I got 4 for you. All right, so as I'm working through this, let me just start with the first one, which is overthinking the process. And as you can see here, I do have a process to my artwork. There are steps that I go through every single time I create, and they're pretty much very similar each time, such as doing that mark making in the beginning and then putting down black. Okay, so those are 2 steps that I always do. And there are additional steps here as well. Okay, and I'm going to be showing you the colors that I'll be using here. So when you are overthinking the process, what I mean by that is maybe not knowing what to create. So, if you haven't come up with your own style yet, then you're going to kind of be stuck with, I don't know what to create. And that's going to be part of that overthinking it. And then another one is maybe just the fear of creating something that you're afraid it's going to just be ugly, and it's not going to be a pretty picture. Although we don't want to paint pretty pictures, we want to create from our heart, and we want to create something that is an expression of ourselves. So sometimes that overthinking will happen when we're fearful of creating something that is just ugly. And then also possibly just being afraid of creating something that maybe other people will not be able to relate to. And you know what? That is very common in abstract art because it's not a pretty picture of a sunset or of a vase of flowers or of a person. So you're going to get people who are really not understanding what it is that you're trying to create. And it's up to you as the artist. Do you want to explain it, or do you want to just leave it up to the viewer to figure it out? What does it mean to them? So those are some things that can happen when you are overthinking the process. But what I'd like to recommend is focus on playing and exploration. So spend some time just having some fun and enjoying the process of creating. And that's going to help you with not overthinking the process. Now, another thing you can do is to just take something that you learned, whether it was an online course or from another artist, on social media or something like that, and find a way to incorporate that into your work. And as you do that, and if you do it regularly, it might be something that just becomes a part of who you are and what you like to do. And then one more thing that you can think about is don't share your art if you are feeling a bit too vulnerable about negative feedback, especially when you are learning and you're in that exploration process. So sometimes you don't want to share those pieces because maybe there's something that you've already been creating, and then people see something different and and weird and new to them, and then they don't understand it, and then sometimes you get some kind of negative comments. And that's going to happen on social media. If you're on social media, you know that people who hide behind the screen tend to be more critical and more negative than if they were standing in front of you and telling you how they feel about your artwork. So if you're feeling a bit vulnerable about that kind of feedback, or it's not even feedback, I don't like to call that feedback because it's unsolicited unsolicited comments that you're getting. So don't share those pieces. Keep a pile of them for yourself. I recently read something about, or actually somebody sent me a video on Instagram where this lady was talking about how there are thousands of pieces of art out there that have never been shared for a variety of reasons. But I thought, how exciting that is to have pieces of art for yourself that nobody else has seen. It's kind of like a diary, right? Where you've been creating over the years and you're saving these pieces for yourself that you have not shared with anybody else. So to help you with not overthinking the creative process, spend some time creating for yourself, and don't share it with anybody. And be selfish and keep that for yourself.
I'm going to interrupt my own video to ask you if you could please give me a thumbs up. It really means a lot to me, and it helps other folks find my videos. And also, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, and it gives you an opportunity to find out when I have another video available. I'm excited to be here and build this community with you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's get back to the fun.
All right, so let me jump back to the video here and what I'm doing. I have put out my cool colors. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I like to either work with cool colors or warm colors. And so in this particular case, I decided to go with cool colors, and I only put out a few of them. Yes, I've been trying to limit my palette. I'm not so good at that, but I only put out a few colors that I'm working with. And then I put out a neutral color, and I think that was raw umber. I was talking, but I think the jar said raw umber. And that's because someone shared with me that they use something similar to raw umber. I don't think it was raw umber, but it was a neutral like that they would use to help harmonize their colors. And I thought, well, I'm going to give that a try. And I did that in my last video, and I just loved the way that it harmonized my colors very quickly. So you'll see me, using the raw umber here. I did put out some larger marks on this piece so that I can start building some foundation to it, and already thinking about the composition of it. And when I think about composition, really what I'm looking at is, do I have large elements in the piece? Do I have smaller elements in the piece? Are they balanced out? Do they look good together? Is there anything competing for attention? Like if I've got too many marks that are the same size, those are going to compete for attention. So I go in there and I try to decide, what I'm going to keep and what I'm not going to keep. All right, so I'm bringing in some neutral here, which is just taking the black and adding some white to that, and making it a bit gray. And I also brought back some black because I covered up a lot of it already. All right, let's go to the second mistake to avoid. And before I do, let me, I did mention in the previous one that if you are still searching for your style of art, and what is it that you want to create, what is it that you want to express, and what is it that you want to put out into the world, I have a guide that would help you in that process. And it certainly helped me when I looked back and I looked at, okay, what helped me get to my current style of creating. And I was able to create this guide based on what are the things that I was looking for that got me to where I am. So it's kind of, I want to help shortcut that process for you. So if you are interested, just leave the word guide below and I'll be happy to send that to you, or as always, you're going to find it in the description under the video. All right, let's go to number 2 here for 4 mistakes to avoid when creating abstract art. So the second one I listed here is using too many colors. And as I mentioned before, man, I am so guilty of this because I love color. And I can't help myself. I just keep thinking, oh, let me put one more color, let me put one more color, or let me mix one more color. So I love color, and this is something that could really get in the way if you are new to creating and you are new to color and not fully understanding color and how certain colors work together, certain colors don't work together, and being able to create pieces of art that doesn't make your piece feel chaotic or that it's lacking a focus, which can happen if you're using way too much color. So one thing that I can recommend, and like what I was trying to do here, is I was trying to limit my palette. So limit your palette, and especially, like I said, if you are just starting to learn, limit your palette. Maybe put out 3 colors plus black and white. I think that's a good number to put out and to work with because you can create so many colors with just 3 plus black and white. Let's see what else. So limiting your palette is going to maybe help you create a more coherent piece, and then also a piece that can feel uh, like it's more intentional as opposed to just a splattering of different colors everywhere. All right, going back to what I'm working on here, I'm switching over now to my warm colors being like your reds and your oranges and your pinks and corals. And I also use yellow for my warm colors, just like my cool colors. And I came in here with mark making because that initial layer had dried, and I like to, whenever that happens, I like to come back in with some mark making because I already covered up all of that previous mark making. So here I've got these larger elements here, which I ended up calling this piece Under the Rose Bush because it reminded me of just rose petals fallen to the ground. And so those red marks there are more of the focal point of this piece, as you can see here. So I like coming in with these with my warm colors now. I can go over some of the stuff that I already did, or I can add to it. I did leave a little bit of white space, not a whole lot with my cool colors, but I will just go over those areas, building up layers. I love building up layers. It adds so much interest and character to the piece as opposed to just one layer of paint. And that's just, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with one layer of paint. It's just my love is for layering and the mystery of layering, seeing, bits and pieces of what may be underneath that color. And that to me is very exciting. Okay, let's go to number 3 on my list of 4 mistakes to avoid when creating abstract art. So my third one is not experimenting enough. And I talk about this often where I encourage you to explore and learn, especially when you're just getting started. And I did a lot of this where I was buying different art supplies and trying different techniques that I was seeing other artists do, trying to figure out, do I like it? Does it resonate with me? Does it not? Is it something that makes me happy? So doing that, I think, is so important so that you can figure out what speaks most to you, what makes you happy, and that way you can do more of that. But at the same time, it's also about what doesn't make me happy. For example, for me personally, um, I would say, let's see, what does not make me happy? Um, Very muted colors. I love bright colors. So muted colors is not my thing. Although I have to tell you, when I see a painting with muted colors on Instagram or Pinterest or Facebook, often I'm just like, wow, that's gorgeous. I love that. But it's not me. It's not the way I want to express myself. So I do have a love for those things, but it's not coming from my heart when I am creating. I want to create with these vibrant colors that bring me joy. So the other thing you can do is try different tools, different paints, different mediums, techniques, even styles. I went through a variety of different styles until I found a style that really spoke to my heart and it was coming from me. But it took a lot of practice of doing other things to understand that that doesn't work for me. And but yet I took like bits and pieces. Like I can go back and look at my older work and say, okay, yeah, I can see that I still do that a little bit differently, but I still do this or that. One example would be layering. I truly have a love for layering, and in my earlier works I would say almost all of them have layering in them, whether I did it with stencils or with collage or different kinds of mark making. I always loved that layering and how that looked and how that spoke to me. So doing these things, we're going to figure out what lights us up, what makes us happy, and then also what doesn't, and what we're going to stop doing. Another example of something that I love as part of my process. And a lot of people say, why do you even bother doing that? And that is my early mark making on that first layer. You probably don't see any of it here. However, it brings me joy, it makes me happy, and it helps me with my process of being able to create art. So here I've introduced, going back to my painting in front of us, I have introduced a very light value, which is pretty much white. I can see I grabbed just a tinge of a little bit of color, or it may have been whatever was on my brush. It's pretty light compared to everything else. However, bringing in those values is so key in your painting. So you want to bring in some lighter values. And this is not going to be my final. I know it seems, I'm looking at it on the screen right now, and I know it seems like, whoa, that's like in your face, bright white. I do tone down a little bit of it just so that it's not quite so in your face. However, as I was saying, it's so key to think about values. So if you're feeling kind of stuck in your painting, look at your values. Are they about all the same? And one way you can do that is you could take a photo and convert it to black and white and see, are there some areas that really are light and are there some areas that are really dark? Oftentimes what I find with newer artists, and certainly with myself when I was getting started, I didn't know values. I didn't understand values. And so I did everything kind of in that, 5, 6, 7 range on a scale of 1 to 10, those mid-range colors, tones and values. And so I learned to really go to the extremes. You got to go to one extreme, which is the black, and the other extreme, which is the light, or the dark and the light. And it doesn't have to be black. It can be a really dark brown, a really dark blue. You pick what the dark will be. All right, so just moving right along here with that white. And this is a great opportunity. I don't like to bring it in too late. It's usually somewhere in the middle stages that I bring it in so that I can go back over some of those areas. And notice here I added kind of that purplish color right over that white so that now that pushed back that white area and it's no longer floating right up on top. That's another thing I love about building up layers is, you could bring things forward and you can push things back, and it's on these different planes, so to speak, and it just adds more interest to the piece. Now here I'm coming in with my palette knife just so I can get down some different types of marks, not everything with a paintbrush. And what I love about the palette knife is it's a bit hard to control. So paint's going to go where it wants to go. You've got a little control, but not a ton. And I love that about it. Okay, so let me go on to the next one, which is the fourth one out of four mistakes to avoid when creating abstract art. And the fourth one I listed here is failing to document your process. And I think the reason for this is, I mean, there's no, several different reasons why it's so important, but example of this is just not keeping track of what you like to do or what you like, what products you like, and looking at, what you've created can lead uh, to kind of missed opportunities in terms of growth as an artist. So some things that you can do to help you in this area is try journaling about your progress. I know some artists love to do this. They've got a journal on hand, and when they are done with their session, they take some notes, or before they get started with a session, maybe they write down some of their intentions for what they would like to focus on. And so personally, me, I am not a journaler. As many times as I try, I start, I stop constantly. Um, I make an attempt, but it's just not me. There are other things that I do, however, that works for me. And let me talk about a couple of other things that you can do. One that's even easier is a photograph. We all have cell phones. You can photograph not just completed work, but take photos, your beginning stages, your middle stages, towards the end, and then the very end. And this way you can look back and you can, if there's something specific that you really liked in that end piece, but now you don't remember how did you get there, this is a great opportunity for you to go back and look at photos and say, oh yes, yes, I remember now I did that layer, and then okay, then I did this layer, and then I used this tool. So take photographs. And one other thing that you can do, and this is something I do a lot of, and I love going back and looking at them, which is videotaping. As you know, I do a lot of videotaping for YouTube so that I can share with you my process. But for me, I love looking back at my old videos, not so much listening to me talk, but looking at my process. What was my process? Because it has evolved a bit over the years. And so it's fascinating to me to go back and look at how I created a piece and think, oh, yeah, I forgot I used to do it that way. So if you get an opportunity to videotape, and you can certainly do that with your cell phone, is, videotape maybe a complete piece from start to finish, and see how you go back and look at it. Maybe not right away, maybe give it a little bit of time, and then go back and look at it, and catch some of those things that you really loved about it. So it'll give you an opportunity to not only improve yourself because you can look back to see what you were doing, but more important, you can, excuse me, you can set some goals for future projects. You can identify things that you don't like about it, that you don't want to do anymore. So those are all good things. All right, so as I shared with you, the last one, I already moved on to doing my final mark making. Now, the final mark making is much more intentional than my early mark making, where I tend to just put down marks everywhere. And it's kind of, I like to call it the icing on the cake. It's that final part of it that adds some interest, but yet it doesn't drastically change anything about the piece. Here I'm using a Neocolor 2 crayon, kind of smearing it in. When you use a Neocolor 2 and you rub it in, also with a woody, then it looks a bit more painterly. It looks like you painted it on as opposed to just a crayon mark. So I do a variety of both of those. And what I love about the Neocolor 2 or even the Woody is, like, if there's something, a color that I wasn't too crazy about, I can come back in at the very end and change it a little bit just by using those. If you're interested in the paint colors I use, they are Nova Color paints, and I have a link under the video, or just leave the words Nova Color. I've got Betty's Bundle, which is 15 paints There are 13 colors plus black and white. It's a great starter kit, and the ones you see on my table are the ones that are, most of those are in that starter bundle. I also have a list to my Amazon store, my favorite art supplies, if you're interested in checking those out. Leave the word, let's see, favorite art supplies below. And then I will send you the link, or again, under the video, you'll find the link. Here I'm doing a combination of filling in, smudging, making marks. It's my opportunity to balance a few things out at the very end. This is a black china marker. And earlier on, I showed you how I peeled my white china marker. You'll have to slow down that part to check it out if you struggle with peeling your china marker. Now, I've got online courses. I would love for you to join me. I've got 3 of them. And so pick the one that you think you're going to love the most. My flagship course, it takes you through everything in real time. I talk through my process. You hear me thinking out loud why I put down colors where I do, why I put down marks where I did, why did I choose that color, how did I balance things. So check that out. And because you follow me here on YouTube, use the coupon code YouTube to get 20% off. I would love to see you in any one of my courses. So here I came in with that brown, which is not one of my favorite colors, and I was just trying to put something down that would add interest, but it actually took away from the petals above. So I decided to erase them. And that's what I love about all of these mark making tools that I use. They're all water soluble, and I can just erase them. If I don't like it, I just go in and I erase it. I did want to put something here. I felt like it was just too large of a white space. And that tapping means I'm thinking, trying to figure out what I want to do. And coming in here with some mark making. You'll see these at the very end. I've got some pictures for you. And I'm cleaning off my eraser because if it's not clean, I tend to smudge on whatever previous color I was using. Okay, I'm calling it done, and I'm going to sign it. So I'm grabbing another, there we go, another one the same size so I have a place to rest my hand and sign it. Hey, if you've stuck around this long to the end of the video, just leave me a heart down below. It really means a lot to me that you are here, and I'm excited that you are sticking around to the end. Here I'm showing you, I've slowed down the video so that you can see all the sides. And I love the sides as much as I love the front. There's something about each side that is like, it's like another painting in itself. And close-ups of the front, you can see where I've scratched through. You can see some of my final mark making in here. And layers. Can you see that there was stuff going on underneath? See, I just, like I said, I love that. Especially that corner there, that right corner, a little bit peeking through. Okay, I've got some photos coming up for you. All right, so there's the photo of it, and got some side views as well. And this piece, as I mentioned before, I called fallen petal. No, under the under the rose bush. I'm getting it confused with another one. All right, thank you so much. You can check out some more videos here and subscribe here if you haven't already. And I am really excited you were here, and looking forward to seeing you in another video. Wishing you a super fabulous and creative day. Take care.